Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers, or whatever time of day it is when you're viewing this podcast. I'm excited for you today. I've been looking forward to this podcast for a while with Dr. JD Schramm of JD Schramm Communications. You know, JD is a keynote speaker, a consultant, a trainer. He works with leaders. He does so much. And I have the pleasure of knowing him personally as well. And over time, we've been able to deepen our friendship as not only colleagues, but personally. And JD, I want to welcome you to Opening Pathways this morning.
Thank you so much, Tom. Every time you and I have a conversation, I walk away on cloud nine with insights I've gained and wisdom I benefit from. So I look forward to whatever unfolds in the next half hour, 45
Uh,
minutes.
well, thank you. Now we can just turn off the podcast after that. So, no, let's jump in because viewers are going to learn about JD's business and more importantly about JD today. So, JD, I want to start at the beginning of what started your idea to start JD Schramm Communications and what sparked you to just join on this path you're on.
It's it's a good question. I have had the benefit of being for much of my career full-time employed in academia, and all professors know that you make a really nice salary from the school where you work, but there is the chance to do some consulting on the side. And so for decades, I had my center of gravity. First at NYU and then at Stanford and on the side I would do 10 to 20% of my time doing some consulting projects and it was nice to have that um, real world experience that I could bring in to share with my students, and it was nice to have this little extra income on the side. In the middle of 2020, as the world went into a global pandemic, I thought, perfect time to launch my own business and leave the security of working for a brand that is as well known as the number one business school in the country, Stanford. And so my last day of teaching was actually March 13th of 2020, which is the day the world shut down. And it wasn't completely my choice to leave at that moment, but I left my faculty position a few months later. I left my administrative role, and I took the consulting up and up and up until I was making enough in my consulting to qualify for a mortgage with my husband for the house that we bought, to manage all of our bills. And I did accept a faculty role at USC, so I teach for them one night a week at the School of Communication. Went from the number one business school to the number one comm school, and I just flipped the proportion to where now 80 to 90% of my work is working with leaders to help them write and speak more effectively. And I still keep my finger in the pie in academia, and have for 5 years now taught at USC's Annenberg School.
And what was that moment when you said to yourself, yep, this is my path?
I think there there's a privilege as a keynote speaker, a workshop or trainer, when you see the light bulb go on, whether it's with one individual or with a team of 15 or 20 or hundreds of people in a keynote, and knowing that with my passion around storytelling, communication, clarity, mastery, by bringing those concepts to light for leaders, it enabled me to see those light bulbs go on. And that's where I knew this is what I was on the planet to do. And I don't want to say I'm content agnostic, but I've worked with everything from CEOs of publicly traded companies and people running for statewide office. and startup founders who are creating still working in stealth mode. But I have a gift of being able to listen to a complex idea, a brilliant innovation, and help that individual or that team make that message clear to a wider audience. And that I really enjoy being able to do.
Love this. So I want to know this. You've been on this path with this business, and what belief about yourself have you outgrown?
Hmm. What belief about myself have I outgrown? What immediately comes to mind is that that annoying little voice that says, "You can't do this. Um, you can't launch a business in the middle of a pandemic. You can't make a living just speaking and writing. You've got to have a real job. You have a family of five. You need benefits. How are you going to do that? That the little annoying voice that I have to just say, thank you. Appreciate the input. I'm a little busy right now. I need you to sit down and be quiet. And I think that's the belief I've outgrown, is that you can't do this. And in reality, I can, and I am on a daily basis doing exactly this.
Yeah, I love this. So tell me this. I found talking with people in this podcast, which I always knew to be true, is someone influenced us when we were very, very young, planted some seeds that impacted and who we are today. Who is that for JD?
Mhm. I have several, but I'm just gonna trust and go with the first person who came to mind. I had a mentor when I was in high school, Floyd Ringer. He was a leader in Scouts that I got to know. He was a retired maintenance man from a lifetime of being in the background. But Floyd had an ability to to let me see things in myself that I couldn't see. And that he's very present to me now. I've just finished reading a book about a canoeing area in Canada, the Boundary Waters, where Floyd took me when I was a high school student. Um, and I just have been really present to the simple, uh, solid influence that mentors like Floyd and that Floyd particularly gave me. So that's who springs to mind this morning.
Let's hear it for Floyd. I love that story. So tell me this, what personal values have guided you from the start of this venture, and has one deepened recently?
One personal value, and I believe I'd have to pull out my high school yearbook to verify. I believe this is in my high school yearbook, my senior year, um, when I was deep in the closet and terrified of anybody finding out I was gay. But one belief that I had is the phrase, "Don't try to be something that you're not, try to become it." And I think throughout my life, I have, instead of um, faking being something, I have decided, if that's something I want to be, what do I need to step into to do that? And that phrase allowed me to, after a lot of struggles, come out, after a lot of struggles, step into recovery from addiction and depression, and allowed me to break through the imposter syndrome that, this little kid with a state college degree in theater from Kansas could be, the architect of the communication curriculum at Stanford's Business School. And so I think, stepping into who it is I aspire to be more of, who it is that I have the intention to step into, and then what are the steps that I have to take in order to do that.
Mm, we're going to share some wisdom here today, I can see. So I want to know this, JD. Where has life asked you to slow down recently, and what did you hear?
Hmm. I'm looking over at my vision board, and one of the phrases on my vision board for 2026 is power up by slowing down. I do believe there is immense power in the pause. And spent a half hour in meditation this morning with my husband to be in the right mindset for this conversation. But boy, if you want something to really call you to be present in the moment, it's my 7-year-old son and my 10-year-old daughter. They are very clearly in the moment sort of beings, and with them and them being working so hard to become a parent, I want to do it right, and that means setting aside the phone, getting out in the hot tub or the trampoline or on the bike, and just being present to what they want. And that forces me to slow down and then bring that centeredness into whatever else it is that I need to go back to, I need to pick up the next morning.
Mm, yes, yes. And I know both of those children. I'm amazed every time I see them how fast they're growing.
Oh,
Um, Tell me this. How has your relationship with risk changed as your responsibility has grown with this company?
how has my relationship with risk changed? Well, um, I I still take risks, but they are more strategic and calculated. I mean, anybody who is a solopreneur, it's running your own company, in my case, if I don't work, I don't make money. I don't have as a part of my business model right now much residual income. I get some royalties off of the book I've written, but it's not enough to retire on. Um, and so I do still take risks, but I would say they are more strategic and calculated. For example, at the beginning of this year, I chose to do less coaching of people to do keynote speeches and deliver more keynotes myself. And so I set as one of my KPIs for the year to deliver more keynotes than I coach. I'm not hitting that measure yet, and I'm really good at coaching keynote speakers. I coached 4 this week that did amazing, amazing work at a conference at Duke on Tuesday night. And yet I know I have to push myself to turn down some opportunities so that I've got the space to be the keynote speaker that I aspire to be. But where maybe in my 20s or 30s I would have shut down everything that I'm doing and launched into this full throttle. I can't do that with a family of 5 depending on me. And so I have to be more calculated, like, let's reduce the amount of time we spend here and make space for this and move into this, but still allow the business that has been thriving for 5 years to continue and to still renew, those contracts as I move myself in. So I think it's risk is still there, but it's more calculated, it's more strategic, and I'm also comfortable that things that matter take time, and I have to go slow as I do that.
Tell me this, JD. How do you recognize when fear is simply information and not a stop sign?
Hmm. I don't believe we can ignore fear, but I also don't believe we can live from fear. Um, the story that comes to mind, some of your viewers may know, I have a TED Talk that's been out there over a decade now about my recovery from a very serious suicide attempt. And I remember when I delivered that talk in March of 2011, two or three hundred people in an amphitheater at a TED event, And the talk went really well. It was the first time I'd been public about that side of my journey. But then Ted wanted to put it up online. I'm like, whoa, I am not ready for this story to be out there for everyone. And Chris Anderson had a lovely exchange for, he said, I think this will make a difference if we can add this to the TED library, and you have to do what you're comfortable with. Take your time. And I was scared. That fear was there. Like, I'm about to be reappointed at Stanford. How can I walk into a classroom of students and teach if people know this about me? And in that 3 month period of time that I was thinking about it, I lost one more friend, a high school classmate, to suicide. I was like, if my talk is about reducing the stigma, I have to be comfortable to do that. And so I talked to some people, I got some good advice, and we ultimately decided to put the talk up live on the anniversary of my suicide attempt, June 11th. And it has never had a negative repercussion to me. But the way you worded that question, when do I decide that fear is a signal but not a stop sign? That was a very clear example where I had to process what was I afraid of? What could happen? And what do I need to do to protect myself? And what ultimately is the wise choice here? And so it informed me, it slowed me down to make a thoughtful decision, but it didn't stop me from putting my TED Talk up there. And still to this day, 15 years later, I get an email every month or two from somebody who's been touched by or served by or uses my talk in teaching. And so I know that it's making a difference.
Yeah, yeah. Wisdom of life, and for me, has taught me that fear is simply an opportunity for growth. And often, like you just shared, when we expose these things we might feel most fearful of, it's quite liberating and of service to others. It's an interesting phenomenon, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me this, what impact are you most proud of, and not publicly or professionally, but personally?
What impact am I most proud of personally? Um, I have an uncanny memory for dates and events in life. I journal. You can see behind me, I've got, journals going all the way back to, I think my oldest journal is 1986. This last year, my co-writer who's working on my next book with me, we scanned every journal. So I've got digital copies of all my handwritten notes from the 80s, the 90s, and 2000s. Um, but I can, on a holiday, be like, oh, where were we 4th of July, 1993? And I can either figure it out or pull out, some stuff and remember. And so I'll send people notes. I sent a note to my sister this morning saying, "Hey, 20 years ago we took our last road trip as just siblings." And where we went from and to, because I could remember, that we ended up in DC for the 4th of July 20 years ago. And so that bizarre quirk of memory, um, I like that. I like being able to share that with people and reach out and remind people of, memories we had or trips we took or events we enjoyed together. And so I that's what I think I'm most proud of at a personal level, is just that sense of legacy that I keep alive with the people in my life.
That's an amazing, amazing gift to be able to do that. And I love it. And I'll remember that if I need to know something we've ever experienced, I'll just reach out to you. Tell me this, JD, what boundary has become essential to your sustainability?
I think the boundary that is essential to my sustainability is recognizing that family is first, and my kids never fall asleep, no matter how busy I am or how upset I am with something that Joshua did, they never fall asleep without knowing their love and without reflecting on what was something that went great today. We call those blueberries, and something that didn't go well. We call those brambles. And so that is core to me. And the boundary between family life and professional life is for me a fluid one, but it does still exist. It's not like my family runs rampant over my schedule and I can't keep my commitments, but it's also that my work is not so crucial that I can't rearrange a meeting so that I'm at a piano recital. And so the boundary between family life and professional life, and knowing that it's got some fluidity to it, but it still has to exist there. They have to know that on this morning for this period of time I'm recording an interview, and I can't be interrupted unless it's an emergency, and I need to have it quiet around my study. So yeah, I think that's the boundary that is essential, but it's not a steel or a brick wall. It's got some fluidity to it.
I love blueberries and brown berries. There's so much to teach there, not only about your day, but there's an element of health. There's an element of even the brown berry becoming a blueberry. I know here on Maui, when I'm here at certain times of the year where I walk, there are wild black raspberries. And the first time I saw this raspberry, it was newer, and they are this amazing color that is like a light raspberry. And I went to bite it, and it was so tart because I hadn't seen them before. And in this case, this berry turns to this like deep, lush, purplish, dark color that almost is uninviting, and then explodes in your mouth. So I love this idea, and I'm going to be playing with that for the rest of the week that you've just done to me. So thank you. Here's what I want to know next, JD. Have you ever said no to growth because it wasn't aligned?
I definitely have said no to opportunities that weren't aligned. And since I said no to them, I don't know that they would have yielded growth. Oh, actually, yes. I can think of an example. Uh, in 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 May and June of 2021, Ken and I had just found this house in Marin County. We qualified for the loan. We were moving forward into buying the house, and I was a finalist for a full-time position at USC. And 3 months earlier, I would have accepted the job offer. But now we had evolved and made this commitment, and I had to call. And if I saw this in a movie, I'd be like, "That's too corny. It doesn't happen that way." But I literally am on the phone with the search committee in my car in the driveway as the movers are taking stuff into our new house behind me. And I had to withdraw from the search, and they were down at that point to, I think, just two or three candidates. And that would have been an incredible growth opportunity. I have a doctorate in higher ed administration. It would have been a great place for me to be and lead a department and help move this program into a different direction. And it wasn't mine to do. What was mine to do was to be dad, have my kids in amazing schools, and really focus on my private practice, which is now flourishing. And
Love
so,
that.
yeah, I have said no. And out of that no, I said, if ever you have something that opens up that I can do from the Bay Area, would glad to be considered. And the woman said, Courtney said, we'll let you know if that happens. Kind of like when you're on a date and somebody says, "Let's be friends," and you're like, "Oh, I'll let you know if that happens." Never thought I would hear from her. And 2 days later, she called and said, "We had a surprise opening. Would you be willing to?" I didn't even let her finish the sentence. I said, "I'd love to teach for you." And now
Yeah.
I'm 5 years into that
See,
teaching
I
relationship.
love these stories. Yeah, right. I
I
love
said
these.
no to growth because there was something else that was there for me to do, and now that all makes clear as I look back on it.
Beautiful story for us to learn wisdom from here today. This renewal look like for JD and not just taking a day off or resting? What renews you?
Well, you took the two best answers away from me. I think renewal comes from new opportunities. I visit a lot of places in my work. I try to not be gone more than 1 week a month, because it's difficult on Ken and the kids when one of us is gone. Um, but I love when I visit somewhere I've never been before. Last week I was at Duke University, and I've been to the Research Triangle a lot for work, but never on campus at Duke. And so I found sculptures and gardens and stuff I had never seen because I'd never been on their campus. In a few weeks, my oldest daughter and I are going to go to Ireland for a week, and I've never been to the country of Ireland. I mean, that's where my ancestors are from. So I think going somewhere I've never been before renews my spirit and gives me that renewal of the spirit of adventure.
Love this. And Ireland is magical. One of my favorite trips I've taken was in Ireland. So I know you'll have a wonderful time. Tell me this, JD, what does legacy mean to you at this stage of life?
I see it in two directions. When I look at my father and his life and his legacy as a fundraiser and a advocate for um, a small Catholic high school that all of us kids graduated from. And I look at how he kept alive the family stories and the I never met my grandfather, but I know a lot about my grandfather because of my father. So I benefit from a lot of legacy that comes to me, and I see it now as my gift to provide that legacy onto my children and their children. And so, holding on to artifacts, artwork that my mother made, that my daughter, who's named for her, will one day inherit. Holding on to there's a set of red leather books behind me that were my mom's that will go on to my daughter. And so I see my role with legacy kind of like the center of an hourglass. Like there's all the legacy that comes into me from my ancestors. And then what kind of ancestor am I going to be to my children and grandchildren? What can I make available out to them? And so that's how I view legacy at this point as a later in life dad.
Yeah,
What can I transition from the legacy I've received to the legacy I pass on?
yes. So let me ask you this, JD. If a much younger JD was watching this podcast recording, what would you tell him?
It gets better. As trite as it is, and the Trevor Project has done a great job of making that a phrase that we share with young people who are going through difficulty in coming to terms with their sexual orientation. Um, I would be sure that a young JD knew, hang in there, it gets better, um, and look for the mentors who have your best interest at heart. Look for the Floyd Ringers, and I can name 15 other mentors that I had as a young gay closeted kid growing up in Kansas. Look for the mentors who have your best interest at heart and hang in there because it definitely gets better.
So you've been on this journey, and I'm curious What have you learned about trust since you started this business?
Trust is crucial for business and personal relationships, but let's keep it focused on the business. Trust is crucial. When a client trusts me to create a keynote or create a series of workshops or coach a cohort of leaders, um, that is something I don't take lightly. Like they are sometimes the biggest investment they make is not the check they write me. It's that they're pulling their entire team off of the front lines for a half day or putting them into a 6 month program that I'm a part of. And so that trust is something I have to honor by delivering good work back to them. And I believe trust is built over time and it can be lost in a moment. And so it is an essential element of a a business relationship and not to be taken lightly or let go of easily.
JD Schramm, Dr. JD Schramm of JD Schramm Communications, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today. Please tell us how we find you.
The easiest place to find me is just my website, which is simply my name, jdschramm.com. And so much of what I do is not open to the public. Like I do so much that's corporate. But I am very excited in if people hear this before September 10th, September 10, 11, 12, and 13. I'm leading a workshop in Santa Fe for Modern Elder Academy, where I'm taking my expertise in storytelling, my friend Christine's expertise in play, and we're doing a workshop on the power of play, a 3-day workshop to unlock what's next. And that'd be a great place to find me is in the mountains of Santa Fe in the middle of September. But my
Yes.
website, my newsletter, all available at jdschramm.com.
And for those of you that don't know about the Modern Elder Academy, viewers, I suggest you take a little Google search and find out about it. It's an extraordinary organization led by Chip Conley that I think you'll find interesting, especially if you're in a time of transition in life. JD, thank
Absolutely.
you for being with me today. Our viewers will gain so much from this podcast we've done, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate you doing this and trusting me for this conversation that we shared today. Take good care.
Absolutely. And to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble. I'll see you next time.